Hey, we're cooking with gas here. On the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekakken von Jan.
Nebbig.
Ver poo-poo-poo.
Vermischt.
Verkackt.
Vertutzt.
Verstonken.
Farted.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Oh, boy. Here we go again. Episode 91 of American
Oh, my
Jew.
gosh. The podcast is so old.
We're getting there. I tell you, there's so much to be thankful for in this podcast, Jonathan.
I mean, we'd put it in a retirement home because it's 91, but then it'd probably have a higher chance of dying of COVID, especially if Cuomo has anything to do with it. Burn! But yes, there is stuff to be thankful for, I guess, always. It depends on how you look at the world. Of course, this is our Thanksgiving episode.
Yes, our Thanksgiving episode. You know, listen, we may not be the turkeys that got pardoned this year, but hopefully we get a pass from some people.
Yes, turkeys are kosher, by the way. It's not a religious holiday. It's an American holiday, and a lot of Jews celebrate Thanksgiving all over the country. And I have always celebrated. My family's always celebrated it. How about yours, Jordan?
Oh, yeah, we've always celebrated it. We enjoy, we've always talked about how much we enjoy the meals at a lot of Jewish ceremonies and religious practices. That's really what brings me back. I have a joke in my act about how I don't go to temple, I show up for the dinners. Thanksgiving is, I think, one of the few American holidays that, even though some of the history behind it is questionable,
It's shady.
A little shady. I think that the idea of being able to get together and be thankful for what we have and to, I think that we've lost sight of the actual giving thanks. It's become such a, this year is so, everything is so highly emotionally and politically charged this year about the whole, limiting the number of people you can have in your home and, the fact that still a lot of people are traveling this year. There's a lot of stuff that people have opinions about. But I think the notion of being able to get together with however many people or even doing it via Zoom virtually or whatever, being thankful for the things that you have in your life and spending a day where you, sort of celebrate whatever kind of abundance you can is a positive thing, regardless of what your background is. And I think,
sure, I know I'm thankful that I didn't have to make up a lie this year not to go back to Florida to spend the holiday with my family. Looking on the positive side of COVID.
Silver and blue linings here.
So, yeah, we always do talk about how, we love the food involved with different holidays. It's all about the food.
I want to just put one query out there that I was thinking about this week that's sort of unrelated, but somewhat related, I guess. How come there's no such thing as a rubber turkey? There's a rubber ducky. There's a rubber chicken. There's no such thing as a rubber turkey. Rubber turkeys are not a thing. Rubber duckies are a thing.
I don't have the answers for you, but it looks like maybe this is an idea for a business you could get started to be very popular around Thanksgiving. Rubber turkeys.
Rubber turducken.
Rubber turkeys, you're the one. You make turkey bath time so much fun. I don't know.
There needs to be a rubber turducken, is what I'm saying. We have the duck.
Oh, now you're going for the turducken.
Well,
you've given up on the turkey. You want the rubber turducken. That's the turkey and the duck and the chicken all together in one.
We have the rubber ducky. We have the rubber chicken. All that's missing is the rubber turkey.
Rubber turkey. I mean, hey, it's a good idea. I bet it would kill and make a lot of money around Thanksgiving time. You got a whole year to make this business idea happen.
Right. So if you know anybody that's in rubber.
I don't. I don't like rubbers.
No. There we go.
Hey, now. Well, one thing I guess to be thankful for is that Biden is going to have a lot of Jews in his administration.
It is exciting to see the number of Jews that he's putting into the cabinet. I will say also, it's just nice to see that there seems to be a lot of competence coming in as well. Like the articles coming out about here come the adults is very nice to see.
It is good. Secretary of State is Jewish.
Yep.
Which is great. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Jewish. Chief of Staff, Jewish. And his pick for the Treasury Secretary is Jewish, too.
A lot of Jews.
That's good. That's four Jews. That's more Jews than Trump had in his whole 4 years.
It's I think it's really great. I think the fact that they are, I talked about this a little bit last week about how there is an overwhelming number of articles written by Jewish journalists showcasing and highlighting how many Jews are in the cabinet and the Jewish ideals that are going to be coming into the office. Like, I think that it is good, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think that it is the only aspect of some of these people's resumes that needs to be highlighted. I think that the other stuff that they're known for, the competence and the experience they bring to the table, is more important than their Jewish backgrounds. I think it's great to highlight it, but for sure, there does seem to be a slant on that being the biggest element of the story. They've buried a lot of the leads.
Well, I mean, that's a lot that we're seeing because, we try to read Jewish news. So I think that's what's popping up. But, I think this is a good thing. Of course, they all have, their own credits, and it's not being a member of the cabal.
Right.
Anthony Blinken, who is his nominee for Secretary of State, he comes from a family of immigrants. His stepfather was a Holocaust survivor. So it is going to be nice to have somebody in a position of power that kind of grew up with those values and, having that kind of perspective on the promises of America coming from, Jewish immigrants.
Yeah.
I just want to jump back for a second about Thanksgiving, because we did mention that, what happened with the indigenous people is kind of like the basis of Thanksgiving. Things didn't work out that well from America. And, when I post videos about the plight of the Palestinian people, a comment that I get a lot from, people that are just pure Zionists and only pro-Israel and don't care at all about the Palestinian people is, oh, well, why don't you go and give back all the land to the Native Americans? And,
right.
They want to kind of equate them that they're the same thing. And while there are some similarities that did happen a long time ago, we're in present time. We've kind of evolved as society and as cultures. And, we hope to do better. We try to do right by indigenous people, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. We
talk about how important knowing the history is. I think that, in America, there are so many aspects of American history that are questionable in the way that we celebrate or perpetuate the certain stories. History is written by the winners, but
right.
So there.
Well, I think we're stopping that right now. There are things that are trying not to have history just by the winners and to change it from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. To say and to acknowledge that America was built off slavery, that we kind of did some crappy things and admitting that, and taking responsibility for our actions. So I think that's good. Hopefully we can continue to go in that direction.
I agree. I hope, and hopefully they can find some sort of balance to be able to understand that same concept in Israel and in the Palestinian areas, for them to be able to see the history and start some of the stuff that's coming out of there, the peace that they have claimed to strike. And I don't know, hopefully there is a bit of a clean slate that they can start working from.
I think, the Biden administration is going to take more into account what's happening with the Palestinian people. And while they're not going to move the embassy, hopefully maybe they will stop giving as much aid unless, Israel shows some goodwill towards the Palestinian people. I feel like we talk a lot badly about the crappy things Israel does, but, Israel is a very innovative country, and they found a way, apparently, they're claiming scientists there, to not only stop the aging process, but to reverse it. Jews are going to be kvetching so much longer.
That's the goal, right? I mean, listen, we talked about the Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah. People in that thing supposedly, were almost 200 years old.
Right. Well, I guess they say time was different, or the way, how they judged years or whatever all the way back then.
Right.
I don't think they had this technology, but apparently it's only using oxygen, and I mean, it sounds good.
Right.
Pure oxygen in a pressurized chamber could reverse aging and illness. So, I mean, it's like the Holy Grail. Let's get that. I want that. That's what I want for Christmas this year, to get de-aged a little bit, even though I look pretty young anyway.
Well, I mean, the guy does say that they can start looking at aging as a reversible disease, but he's skeptical. The guy, even the Israeli doctor, is talking about using oxygen therapy to do this.
Hey, that's all we need is more oxygen. But you know what? You shouldn't be breathing in the oxygen if you're in a packed synagogue in a clandestine wedding that you're trying to hide from the public, you're trying to hide from authorities, and you have thousands of people not wearing masks at a super spreader event more than a goddamn Trump rally. And, we talked about this, people were saying that it was anti-Semitic, calling out the Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn. But, I mean, this is why they got called out, because they're pulling this kind of crap. They purposely went and tried to, keep this from people and deceive, I guess, people that this was happening. And, I mean, this is kind of like a big, fuck you to everybody in New York City when they have thousands of people without a mask all celebrating together. It was some wedding, I guess, of a big rabbi. And, of course, it's a simcha, and they should have a celebration. But they also need to show some responsibility for the community. And then when people are going to be upset now with Jews, or people are going to yell at Jews on the street to wear masks, they're going to be like, anti-Semitism. But again, they're fanning the flames of anti-Semitism by acting this way. And I'm not trying to blame the victim here, but I feel like we have to take responsibility as not only human beings and people, but as Jewish people, that we reflect upon a whole religion and a whole group of people, and we have to act accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are banging our head against a wall talking about this every week. There doesn't seem to be every week there's a new story about this exact issue, about how there are huge religious organizations, not just Jews, but Jews seem to be the ones that are targeted the most in the New York area for sure.
I mean, I haven't heard about a Christian wedding with thousands of people that they're trying to hide from the authorities or anybody finding out about.
Right. So,
I mean, maybe those stories do exist, and yeah, like you're saying, they're not being portrayed by the media, but I don't think so. I thought the Jews run the media, so why are we only calling out ourselves? I don't know. I think.
Listen, the fact is,
really blew it with this. This is really a shanda.
We have always talked about how one of the reasons that anti-Semitism exists is because from the beginning of our existence, the Jews have touted themselves as the moral compass for the world, and we try to teach the world what it is to be loving and accepting. And in cases like this, where we shun all other rule of law and don't look out for our fellow man, we're not really leading the example that we need to be leading. And it's troubling. I hope that we could be doing better.
Absolutely. Well, the organizers have been fined by the city, I think $15,000. Hope they are passing around the bucket around the Hasidic community, or they start asking for tzedakah to pay for it. I don't know what they're going to do, but bad move.
Yeah.
Bad move on the Hasidic Jews.
There goes your dowry.
Hasidic Jews make Jews look bad. I'm sorry. Am I anti-Semitic because I don't like Hasidic Jews? I don't like the way they treat women. I don't like the way they kind of shun the world out and the way they react and respond to it. Actually, I shouldn't say they. Just a large group in that community. It's not all. It's not all Hasidic Jews, but the vast majority. This is what they're doing. This is crazy. And whether it is, I hate this. I hate this thing, justification. Oh, other religions do what others. So what? Who cares what other people are doing? We need it. Like you said, we're supposed to be the moral compass of the world. We should set the standard, not be like, oh, well, they did it, so why can't? What are you, 5 years old? Oh, my parents used to tell me, oh, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off?
Right.
A bridge too?
The Hasidic community is such a a social bubble in a sense that we don't really, there doesn't seem to be a lot of care for people outside that bubble.
No, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And this is other interesting news. I don't know if you saw this, but the United Nations panel voted 163-5 in support of Palestinian statehood and the end of the occupation. Did you see that?
No, I did not see that. When did this go down?
This was like 5 days ago, November 20th.
Jeez, I got to get up on that.
The UN voted overwhelmingly to approve a draft resolution in favor of Palestinian self-determination, with Israel and the United States voting against it. Isn't that crazy?
And and the other ones were.
There were 5 were against, and 10 countries abstained from the vote. But 163 countries voted for statehood.
I mean, I hope Israel and America listens. This is what the world wants. It wants a Palestine.
The list of countries that were against it is almost comical. In addition to Israel and the U.S., it's the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Nauru also voted against it. Australia, Cameroon, Guatemala, Honduras, Kiribati, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Rwanda, Togo, and Tonga all abstained.
Okay, so a lot of countries that nobody has even heard of.
Well, I mean, people have heard of Australia and Guatemala.
That one, yeah, but Micronesia?
Yeah, Micronesia is against it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard of Micronesia. Sounds like what you would call Indonesia's little penis.
But I don't understand why, obviously you can understand why Israel is against it, because it takes away from some of their dominance in that area, and I'm very disappointed that the U.S. is against it as well.
Yes, but I mean, maybe hopefully that'll change. With the new administration, keeping our fingers crossed. Biden has strong ties to Israel. He always has, but hopefully he will encourage them to do the right thing, and I believe that he will, and I have faith that he will.
I mean, it is good to see that 163 other countries approved it. Like, that's good.
No, that's great, but this should be a bigger news story.
The story came out I think just day after last week's episode that we put out. So
okay,
maybe it got buried, but I remember seeing it and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that because that's big news.
Well, yes, I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm glad that the UN did that right after Pompeo went to Israel, and we talked about what we talked about last week. So, I mean, hopefully it's a step in the right direction. A lot of people think the UN is just all talk and no action, and that they say they're going to do stuff for Palestine, but they never do. But hopefully, some good will come from this.
I'm certainly thankful for the things that are happening in the right direction. I mean, that's what it's all about. This year is coming to an end, and we're starting to have all of these holidays and reasons to put things from 2020 behind us and start looking forward to a new year, and that's why it's always good to have guests on the show who can help us to feel like we're part of a larger community.
Yeah, very excited to have actor and comedian Gianmarco Soresi on the show.
Yeah, I love Gianmarco. Always a fun guy to hang out with, a great comedy writer as well, very sharp.
And very dedicated to the craft, man. I got to give him props. He is very driven, and it's really nice to see.
I get angry sometimes when I see him with too much new material. It's like, fuck, what am I doing?
Yeah, Jordan, stop playing Spider-Man video games and write some jokes, motherfucker.
Yeah, well, I wrote a couple of Spider-Man jokes.
All right, well, you could be the friendly neighborhood joke teller.
I am the friendly neighborhood Jew. We are really excited to welcome Gianmarco Soresi to the show. Hello, sir.
Soresi!
Oh, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to correct it. But thank you for doing it, Jonathan.
I'm correcting it, Gianmarco. Gianmarco's just like, probably no one's listening anyways.
No, I never, because it's so bitchy. Because so many people, the first time they meet me, the first thing they hear from me was like, "Well, actually, you're wrong." So I just skip it. I let people figure it out on their own. Let them feel bad on their own.
Okay, that's smart. That's real some Dale Carnegie shit. No one likes to be corrected.
Well, we're excited to have you on the show here. I always feel like it's not exactly a Jewish name. It doesn't scream Judaism.
Mm-hmm. Even in the Jewish faith, it's my mother who is Jewish. Her original last name was Rothkrug.
Okay, that's pretty Jewish.
Rothkrug, I like that. It's it's very Jewish German.
Yeah. And she grew up in Great Neck, New York, so more Jewish. And what happened with my mom, I guess her parents told her she could either have a bat mitzvah or like a really big sweet 16. And so she had a sweet 16, and the theme was God is dead. She moved on from her faith very quickly. My uncles, though, are still very Jewy. They're still in Great Neck. We go there for Passover. We go there for all those things.
Okay.
So yeah.
But that's good. That's a good choice. I wish I would have gotten that choice. Is like you could have a good bar mitzvah, or you could get a much nicer car when you're 16. I'd have been like, I don't want to be a man. I want to drive.
I think it shows some incredible foresight for a 12-year-old to be like, the marshmallow experiment they used to do on kids. It's like a psychology thing. And they're like, if you wait, we'll give you 2 marshmallows. And like some kids, they can't resist. They eat the marshmallow automatically. But my mom was like, no, I'm going to wait for the sweet 16. I think that's pretty incredible for a 12-year-old.
No, it is.
She was
it's
already
very stoic.
a grown woman.
Right, that did show that she had matured already.
Also, there's less paperwork. I mean, you don't have to do anything for the Sweet 16. You just show up to the party.
Yeah. I mean, it would be pretty weird if she had only Sweet 16 where she read a portion of the Torah. And
that would have been hilarious. This is the most boring Sweet 16 I ever been to.
Well, I mean, if the theme was God is dead, I mean, it wouldn't have been from the Torah. She would have been reading from, like, Nietzsche or something.
Sure. That would be a cool Sweet 16, like a goth Sweet 16.
Well, when you're 16, you don't dance the hora, you just act like a hora.
Wow.
Sorry. That's actually more of like a Jordan joke, but
I was about to say, like, what's happening here? The terrible puns, that's my lane.
He's rubbing off on me. So Gianmarco, he talks, of course, a lot in his act about coming from a divorced household. His mother's Jewish, his father's not. Did you feel like torn between 2 religions when you were growing up?
No, they were all pretty burnt out on religion. I think my dad was raised Catholic, but like had the mean nuns in school. And so like, I think those nuns hit him with enough rulers that he was like, I'm done with this.
Right.
They beat the Jesus out of him.
They beat the Jesus out of him for sure. I never met my dad's dad, but my step grandfather, essentially, he was a Catholic priest. He was like a dean of students at Georgetown University. He fell in love with my grandma, who was his secretary. And he basically, he wrote the Pope and said, is it okay?
At least it wasn't an altar boy, right, Gianmarco? Sorry.
He wrote the Pope it was okay to, get married, and the Pope excommunicated him.
Oh boy.
Harsh.
So like first apparently they sent him to like a psych ward because, this is the 80s or 70s or something. So they thought he was crazy for wanting to leave the Catholic Church. And but ultimately he left. My dad didn't raise me Catholic. My mom barely, until I went on my birthright trip at like 25, 24.
Okay.
And when you went on birthright, was this something like, you wanted to get in touch with the Jewish roots? You wanted to go see Israel? Or was it more just like free trip?
It was definitely a lot of free trip, but there was a thing. I grew up in Potomac, Maryland, so I went to a lot of bar mitzvahs, a lot of bat mitzvahs. I was like surrounded with Jewish culture, and I think what happened in college, there was a professor. I went to college for musical theater, and he was like one of the cool guru-ish acting, singing teachers. And he would always cook these lavish meals for Jewish holidays and invite all the Jewish students. And he didn't invite me. And it really made me furious.
Okay, wow.
It made me just so livid. And I remember I had a friend who I was close with, and I said, yeah, it upsets me. It doesn't bother me. And my friend was like, well, but you're not like really Jewish. And I was like, fuck this. What do you know, I would be on the same train as you. Like, it's such a ridiculous, like, that's a sad way to think about it, but it's like, I am a Jew.
Right.
So,
No, you're 100% Jew. It's so absurd. We've talked about on the podcast a lot, you know, when people's father is only Jewish and they identify as Jewish, and Jews want to be like, you're not really Jewish, but we're like, if you want to be Jewish, but you're like full-blooded Jew. You're like straight-on Jew.
Yeah. So that was partly why I wanted to do it. I wanted to, like, meet other Jews. I've always been allergic to, I hate when the Hasidic Jews come up and go like, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? There's something for me about assumed brotherhood based on heritage that, like, I think has always just struck me as gross, or I don't like it. I think
I thought you were worried about them being super spreaders.
Well, sure. Now I am, for sure. I say, like, just pull the yarmulke down. You got the ties right there. But I think the idea of, like, assumed brotherhood bothers me, because I think in my head I connect it to the same people feel with, like, white white pride, or like cake. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we're the same thing. Right. It just all strikes me as gross. And the tour was, I mean, Birthright was really interesting because I leaned in. I got a bar mitzvah, like, at the wall. Our tour guide rabbi was like, who didn't have a bar mitzvah? Everyone gathered around, and we, like, had a speed bar bat mitzvah.
Wow.
But
how long did that? How long?
You're a man.
Yeah. But I like, there were some people on the trip, you know, who were like, I would only marry another Jew. And, like, to me, there's something about that I'm like, oh, that's wrong. You can't say that out loud. That's bad. But I'm also like, I don't have a group. I'm sort of Italian. So being Jewish is something that I'm like, oh, well, this is, like, the one community I do belong to that would welcome me in times of need. So I am interested in, like, doing more Shabbat dinners or just understanding it a little bit more.
When you were there, did you have any like did you feel anything? Did you have any like kind of religious experience, or was it just like, hey, this is cool and this is something interesting that I've done?
It's hard. I mean, you know, as a comedian, I think I look at most traditions, and it's really all I can think is, like, you know, when I went to the wall, they did the thing with the rap,
the tefillin,
and yeah, and, like, there's something about it that, to me, I'm like, this is insane. I mean, there's a voice in my head, but that's all I can think. And back then, I was this was before I was, like, a real stand-up comedian, so, like, I was a little bit more actor. I went to the wall, and I sincerely breathed and did the thing, and I guess I felt something so much as in, like, I understood that the ritual gave a space to try to connect to a feeling that one might describe as religious. But I could get that same feeling in a yoga class, meditating on my own. I think there is something powerful about when we went to the wall and you separated and all the men were dancing together, where there's this, especially with men, where it's like, oh, this is an interesting thing where these men get to dance in a way that other cultures wouldn't let men dance and hold hands and, like, sing together and just behave in a way that, especially in Western culture, would be, like, feminine almost, or just, like, oddly intimate. And that's cool. And then I go, well, but it's also propagated by misogynistic rules and the fact that the women have to be over there. But I see what kind of community they're getting from this. And it is fun to dance and hold hands and all that stuff and have an excuse to be silly. In my mind, I would call it being silly, but in, like, a good way, or, you know, enjoying life.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because I was just talking to a girl last night who told me that one of the times when she kind of disconnected a little bit from Judaism was when she went to the Wailing Wall and they separated the men and women, and she felt like the men had the better part of the wall and she didn't really dig that whole thing, and that was kind of when she really took a step back from Judaism.
Well, that's on the woman. That's the women's fault. We don't have like extra toys on our side of the wall. We're just having a little more fun. That's on you.
It's much better on the men's side.
And what happened on the trip was the tour. So the tour guide was very interesting. He came from a non-religious Jewish household. He went on his birthright and became Hasidic after that.
Wow.
Intense. So at like the last night of the trip, we had a Shabbat dinner, and at the end he was like, "Everyone gather around. We're going to play a game I call Stump the Rabbi, where you can ask me anything you want about Orthodox Judaism." And like, this was a group of New York Jews, and like some were very religious, and then others were like me, just a little punchier, a little ready to just like shit on the whole enterprise. And I asked, like, second up, I was like, how do Orthodox Jews feel about homosexuality? And, the dancing around the question that this guy tried to play, he was like, oh, if someone came to me and they said they were gay, I would hug them because life is so hard. And I was like, okay, but how do you feel about homosexuality though? And like, I just kept driving it. Before we knew it, someone was crying. Someone was shouting at Shlomo. Someone was shouting at them, being like, respect the religion. And they were like, no, I'm not going to respect anyone who doesn't respect gay people. Someone walked out. It was amazing.
It was everything I hoped it would be.
Yeah, I stumped the rabbi. That's the name of the game. I won, as far as I'm
You
concerned.
broke up the whole trip, it sounds like.
Yeah. It was lucky it was towards the end.
There were 2 buses from then on out.
So yeah, I struggle with it because I'm allergic to like any kind of religious thought or just like, yeah.
I just want to say, using the term, that you're allergic to it is a very Jewish way to describe it. I am allergic. I have a physical reaction to this negativity. I can't be around it. My rabbi told me not to take 2 of those and still to call him in the morning.
Even if I wasn't raised religiously, I'm like, I do have a Jewish mother, and there's part of me is learning like what parts of me are Jewish because my mom was raised in a Jewish household. So maybe I wasn't raised with the religion, but whatever the common tropes or the cultural aspects of Judaism, I was like raised in that in an emotional sense.
Yeah.
In a like the kind of the way I am neurotic. I mean, it's from my mother.
Yeah.
And it's this mix of where like I want to embrace something, but I don't like the religious aspect. I'm kind of seeing a Jewish person right now who came from a very religious household, and we went to a Shabbat dinner, and the dinner part is fine, and then they sing the songs, and there's part of me that bristles. I don't like. I'm not at the dinner being like, let me play Stump the Rabbi with all of you. I wouldn't do that. I'm not a dick about it. But
and Gianmarco has a musical theater background, so if he hates singing songs, there's something wrong with them.
So I'm trying. I will try to like. I plan on trying to do a little bit more of it, but I feel like I need to be with people who make really clear that their conception of religion is very loose, and that this is the tradition aspect that we're engaging in.
I mean, was it the songs themselves that you had an issue with, or was it sort of like? I feel like sometimes there's like that the chanting, the mindless, parroting of what people say. So sometimes you don't even really know the meaning behind the songs, or just it feels like a religious ceremony versus a joyful way to sing and celebrate.
I think that's just like partly the comedian aspect of where it's just like for me to engage in sincerity, I feel like I have to be in the right place. I have to like the people I'm doing it with, I mean, this is why, like, I'll still do acting because it's like, oh, we're engaging in sincerity for the sake of this creation. We're agreeing to this. But when I'm at a group of like strangers, I'm like, ugh, half of you I already don't like.
Yeah.
And like, you want me to be like, we're really feeling something together. I don't want to be with half of you. So like this guy is singing the song, and we had a talk earlier, and he talked about how much he loved Joe Rogan, and I'm like, I don't want to engage sincerely with you. You bother me. But I think there's also a shortcoming of sincerity. I think every comedian, if they don't watch it, they just become so bitter and cynical. They can never have a moment of feeling. So maybe I'll do more, and eventually I'll learn the lyrics and sing along.
You know, it's hard because there is like so much negativity in Judaism, and you know, for a religion that, you know, wants to spread love in the world, there is kind of a lot of hate. But, you know, doing this podcast, you know, with guests that we've had like Danny Cohen and Judy Gold and Jess Solomon, and seeing all these people that are gay, and yet they somehow can find this beauty in this religion that kind of doesn't want them to be a part of it, it really kind of made me, you know, see things a little differently, because I felt a lot like you did, Gianmarco. It's like, look, get these homophobes out of here. Like, who wants to deal with this?
Yeah.
So that was always like kind of like a shock to me. And then to see how much like love and understanding they had for it, it's kind of like, hey, if they are going to feel that way and they're the ones that are, you know, being oppressed or hated on, then like, who am I to say, you know?
Yeah. I think it's even like going back to, now that I think about it, after you saying that, like, I think one of the things that bothers me with like Hasidic people approaching me on the street is because like in that moment, they're being very sweet to me. They're being very nice. And so I feel this feeling of like, oh, if a young Hasidic teen approaches me and he's like with warmth and like, hello, brother, it's like he's making me feel like good in that way. But at the same time, I'm like, you're fucking the things that like this community, if someone wants to leave, the fucking hell they make it to leave. Or the one documentary on Netflix about the woman who tried to leave and the guy's just destroying her in the custody battles. Right. It like makes me so mad because they're doing something sweet, and it's against this backdrop of like your whole thing is this whole system is so deeply problematic, and you're just a little kid and you don't even know. It just makes me so mad. And we all are dealing with, you saw, I'm sure, the Hasidic, the wedding that happened recently.
Yeah, we were just
I was like, where
earlier.
is this? Was this at the Javits? Like, it was gigantic. I was like, where is this gigantic place? And you like,
I'm trying to get a bringer show going over there.
Oh my God. Well, I've done live. I mean, you know, Jonathan, we do shows at LOL, and every once in a while, there's a group of Hasidic men that come in, and generally dreadful audience members don't like poke fun at themselves. I'll always remember where it was like a 1 a.m. show, group of Hasidic men, and I was talking about pot or something, and I was like, do you guys partake in pot? And he was like, no, but we'll sell it. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? You're really reinforcing the bad brand here. He said, no, but we'll sell it. And
well,
I was like, what the fuck?
I read a thing a few years ago that I have often touted on stage, which is, you know, they came out a few years ago to say that marijuana was not kosher for Passover, but the rest of the year.
Wow.
L'chaim.
Good.
Smoke them if you
I
got
hope they get high in it.
They need to get high on something more than God, because, you know, it is. The people that are the most extreme, I guess, of any religion are really doing a disservice to the religion, is something that I think, because it's true. You know, the Chassids, they see you on the street and they're so dismissive. Are you Jewish? Oh, you're not Jewish? It's like you're not worthy of crossing them on the street. And it's, even one time I had an experience with them where, I don't know, I was shaking the lulav or something on Sukkot, and I was trying to talk a little Hebrew to them that I speak, and one of these little kids was just being like such a jerk.
That's so funny.
And I was like, I'm like, I'm trying to connect, and this like 13-year-old is being like a total.
She'll be like, hey, look at this. Look at this. I'm going to hold a woman's hand. Oh, can't do that, can you, buddy? Congrats on your Hebrew. That joke I did earlier about pull the yarmulke down, you got the ties right there. Like, I posted that on TikTok, and, you know, everyone's like, this is anti-Semitic. And it's just like, this sucks. Because obviously anti-Semitism is a gigantic issue, but that some Hasidic Jews, whenever they get pushed back, that they're leaning on that card to get you to just shut down the conversation. We all know it.
No,
we all know
absolutely.
this card is abused tremendously.
Absolutely.
I do think it's interesting where, like, being a Jew, because, generally I consider myself, I'm a white man. I think I'm identified as a white man. But then you get into conversations and it's like, oh, but I can talk about this with a little bit more freely. Like, once people know I'm a Jew, then you get a little bit more agency to be like, I feel like I can more fairly talk about these Hasidic Jews. And if you want to throw anti-Semitism at me, I'll be like, guess what? I'm fucking Jewish. I'm allowed to talk about this.
Have you experienced a lot of anti-Semitism or any?
No, I don't think so. I've gotten jokes about my big nose, but I don't think that's. For all I know, my nose is from my father. My mom got a nose job when she was like, 12. My sisters got nose jobs.
Okay.
So I don't even know what my mom's original nose looks like.
Mm.
Oh, really? Like, she burnt all the pictures? She's like, my son will never know.
Yeah. Pretty much. I have a deviated septum, and I want to get it fixed one day. I would never change it at this point. It's too much a thing.
Well, let me ask you this. I wonder...
how much coke did you do to get that deviated septum?
And what was the price? No, but I mean, so you didn't really... you weren't really raised with a lot of Judaism. Were you raised with a lot of Catholicism? Was there any Catholicism in your life?
No. My dad hated that shit. I'm so glad I didn't have Catholicism, because I was I have anxiety and OCD, and like I had a friend who's raised Catholic, and he told me, like, every time he masturbated, he would then cry, and I was like, oh my God, he would cry and pray because he thought he was going to hell.
His eye? I don't understand.
And I was like, oh my God, if I thought I was going to hell every time I masturbated, my childhood would have been a living hell. Like, it would have been the biggest. I would have been crying all the time. So, like, there's part of me that's like, being raised with religion, you get a community, you certainly get a shitload of comedy material. I mean, there's great material coming from being raised religious. But overall, I think better not than to have it. If I had a kid, I'd be like, do you want to check out Hebrew school? I would definitely not be like, do you want to check out the Vatican? But I would feel more comfortable being like, do you want to go to Hebrew school? Let's print out the Passover instructions and go through the thing.
Or, I mean, you could give the same ultimatum that your mother got, which is like, would you like a bat mitzvah at 13, or do you want to be a godless heathen?
Yeah. I think it's important. I don't think I was raised with a great connection to my heritage. And, like, it's hard for it to impact you when you learn more deeply about the Holocaust at 16 than when you, like, grow up where you those traditions. In my mind, I think these traditions like Passover or learning about your heritage, when you're at a younger age, they just go deeper inside of you, and your mix of loving it later in life is connected to nostalgia. Mm-hmm. It's connected to childhood. Yeah. And so I think when you come at it and learn about things as an adult, you just have to work through more, cynicism and walls that you've built up over your lifetime. And that's why I think in that respect, I'm like, oh, it would have been nicer if I had more of it as a kid. So it could have its roots deeper in my child self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had those kinds of conversations with this girl that you're seeing that's Jewish? Has it gotten to a point where you're talking about kids in the future?
No, we're that I feel sick just at the thought of thinking about children.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject.
No, I'm one of those terrible men that I'm like, I don't want to talk about things about futures or labels, but no, she wouldn't mind me saying it. I don't think. After the Shabbat dinner, she felt a little bit like I had kind of been a little like snarky about the tradition. And I tried to take it in. I tried to take it in. I did fight back. I said that immediately after the song, they then read everybody's astrology charts. I will open myself up to religion. I refuse to engage in astrology. So like,
did they invite you to the synagogue at Burning Man? What kind of Shabbat dinner was this?
It was the kind of dinner that, like, middle of the dinner, they said, does anyone want some MDMA? And I was like, this is not part of the tradition.
What's the blessing on MDMA? I think it's Chicolnier Bimaro. I don't know.
So I tried to take it in. I don't want to be disrespectful. But again, like, so I'm like, okay, I'll engage in this tradition. But now you're going to bring up astrology? Get the fuck out of here. Pick one lane. We don't just get to do whatever we want.
I can only resist mocking one belief system at a time.
Exactly.
Do you like dating who you're going to go out with?
No, I would say if I look at, like, my history, there aren't as many Jewish women. I don't necessarily think that's a choice. I do think more often than not, if a woman approaches me or hits on me, chances are they're Jewish. I think, like, that does seem to be...
The Jewish girls got that chutzpah.
Just someone they can bring home to mom and everyone's happy. So that's what I have noticed, for sure.
It's funny. A Jewish girl once said to me, she goes, I don't understand how you're single. You're Jewish, you have hair, and you're tall. I'm like, oh my God, is that all it takes?
Yes.
And it kind of is for some Jewish girls, yeah. The Friday night dinner didn't blow the relationship.
I just love I have to make declarations about
Listen, are you going to marry this girl or not? No, okay, forget it. We'll move on. You don't have to say it.
No, it's not going to blow it. That would never blow it. It's obviously for her, it connects to family, it connects to nostalgia, it connects to all these things. And I would never shit all over that because, someday I'm going to want her to go with me to see a musical. And I'm going to have to say, you owe me this one. I engaged in your tradition. Now you engage in my tradition. We'll see Fiddler on the Roof. We'll
right.
We'll
She'll be like, it's got to be the producers.
Every musical has a little bit of Jewishness to it, so it's okay.
It's true.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 4 younger siblings, technically half siblings, and 3 Jewish on my mom's side.
And how do they feel about the Judaism thing? Did any of them go on Birthright as well, or you were the only one?
I think one of my sisters went on Birthright. The other 2, no. Like, my brother's in college, and he's definitely deep into his newfound atheist phase. My younger sister, like, went through because her father, my stepfather, was raised Protestant, and, like, she went through, like, a brief I'm a Christian phase. And I think it was more about buying the diamond-encrusted cross necklace than anything about Jesus Christ. I never heard about Jesus Christ. I just heard about the new cross she was getting.
Right.
But she left that. We still do, like, the Jewish traditions. I think, like me, they will embrace it more as they get older. We'll see if my younger brother does. But I like to think if we were ever in the same town together, we would do, like, Passover. And
okay, so much like us, Gianmarco, you're, like, more into Judaism culturally.
Yeah.
I know you said you were 16 when you learned about the Holocaust. Was that something in school? Was that something like your mom told you or like your grandparents told you about?
I think I just learned about it in school, and I think, like, maybe that's where it would have been nice when you're younger to be like, this is part of our heritage. Because when you learn about it in school, it's just such a different because when you're hearing about it, you're having to, I got to memorize this for a fucking test next week. And that's a different experience than, like, I don't know what other families do. Do they sit down like, hey, children, gather around. We're going to watch Shoah together tonight.
Schindler's List again, Dad?
Schindler's List.
Can't we watch Yentl for once?
Yeah, I've never seen Yentl. I'm familiar with Barbra Streisand, her musical work, but
I know I'm more familiar with Yentl as a punchline than I am as a film.
Yes. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I'd say if I had kids, I would try to connect them more to their heritage than my parents did. My dad was, like, obsessed with, like, talking about Italian heritage, and we're not even that Italian. So it was like, it was inauthentic. And I even think my mom, as she got older, like, she tries to do the holidays because you get older, you get lonely, and you want to connect to community in a different way. And I guess that's the one nice thing about being Jewish. I'm like, well, this is always open to me whenever I want to engage in it. And that's a nice thing to have.
Well, Gianmarco, we have some questions we like to ask all our guests.
Sure, let's do it.
Do you have like a favorite Jewish food?
I guess I'd have to go with like matzo ball soup.
Yeah.
I always was this weird kid. Like I liked the parsley dipped in the salt water. I was always the one like getting third helpings of that. And they were like, no, this is the part you're not supposed to enjoy. This is the bitter part. And I was like, but it tastes so good.
It's hilarious.
Well, leaning to that, what's your favorite Jewish holiday?
So there's Passover. I feel like Passover, that's the one where you read a lot. You read a lot stuff out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
tell
like
the
that.
story of the Jews' Exodus.
Any chance I have to participate in theater.
Yeah?
Enjoy.
You like to run the ceremony.
Yeah, I'm more the actor. I like to be delegated and just blow it out of the water.
Yeah.
And, my sisters, and I'm like, and then Moses. And like, really get into it.
Nice. You got to steal the show.
Yeah. Back in the room there.
Who do you have a favorite Jew? It could be fictional, biblical, real life, and entertainment, anything.
I feel like the one I dig is what's the Italian's name? Who did Life is Beautiful?
Oh, Roberto Benigni.
Roberto Benigni.
He's great. I love him.
He's just a joyful, an Italian Jew.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, oh, you're an Italian Jew, but it's very, my dad at the time, my mom's Jewish, but he's an Italian Jew. And it's just cool to see these two things together.
Yeah. And he talks very much with his hands like that. I love that as well.
He's hilarious.
He's great. Life is Beautiful is an incredible movie.
One of the best. And then he most of his other stuff is like wet, hot garbage. And it's amazing that it came together in Life is Beautiful. And the scene with the German where he pretends that he can understand German and he's translating the Nazis' instructions, but he's just trying to convince his son that it's all a fun game.
Right.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
What is more amazing?
Yeah, fantastic.
Totally agree. Well, cool. What do you want to plug? Anything you want to plug? Where can people find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. It's at Gianmarco Soresi. Just look at how it's spelled in the show notes. It is very Italian. I did a roast battle, and J.P. McDade, he called me Jewy G, which I feel like was more accurate of a title, Jewy G. And so find me there. I have an Amazon special out called Shelf Life. It's on Amazon Prime. And then hopefully when the world returns, you can see me at the world famous LOL Comedy Club.
So funny.
So yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Gianmarco. We really appreciate having you.
I appreciate having me.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much to Gianmarco for stopping by and chatting with us on the show.
Yes, thanks, Gianmarco. Follow him across all social media.
And you can always follow us across all social media at American Jew Podcast, except on Twitter, we're American Jew Pod. If you're not following our Patreon page, you should be doing that as well. We have extended interviews with a lot of our guests. And you can always email us at AmericanJewPodcast@gmail.com. I know that our episodes can be a little short sometimes and we don't get too deep into some of these stories, but we'd love to hear from you about what some of the stories mean to you and how we can engage more with our intellect and with our audience. So write to us and let us know how we can improve the show. And
totally. And we're very thankful for all of our listeners. And like Jordan mentioned, the Patreon, we'd be super thankful if more people joined. Follow me across all social media. I'll be thankful for that too, at Jonathan Randall.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We will be here next week with some leftovers.